All right, Shabbat say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors who sponsor all the shir and drashos for the month of Adar Aleph, Mrs. Selma Wolf, with immense gratitude for the refuahs from Hashem and the merit of a refuah for all of those in need, and the schus of our brave soldiers and the return of our hostages. The Schwartzbaum family in memory of Rabbi Aaron Schwartzbaum, Aaron Yosef ben Meir Zichron Livracha. The Ziv, Levine, and Berman families in memory of William Ziv, Zev Shmuel ben Yosef Zichron Livracha. Our week of learning sponsors: Paul and Kathy Pollack in the schus of refuah shlema for Mr. Jack Levy, Yaakov ben Eta Leah, who is undergoing surgery this week in Eretz Yisrael, and our Daf Yomi sponsor, Ellen Khan Zager, in memory of her father, Sam Khan, Reb Shlomo ben David HaKohen on his yahrzeit, and Sarah and Yoel Kelman in the schus. It's beautiful in the schus of Emir Hashem, a smooth induction and delivery of their child on March 6th. Just today, beautiful. I don't think we've ever had a Daf Yomi sponsorship in the schus of a smooth induction. Emir Hashem, oh, beautiful. All should just go b'sha'a tova u'mitzlachos. Incredible. All of the neshama shav and aliyah, all of those who need a refuah shav and with kol choli yisrael and halavai. Klal Yisrael should be zocha to welcome the arrival of many new babies in the days and the months and the years ahead in Meretz Hashem. Well, so with that, let us begin. So today's daf is daf Zayin 7, and we are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Bava Mebeis. So now I left you a little bit like in that cliffhanger over there, Hadra Amra Abaye, so Rabbi say, which is 2, it's 2, 4, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom. I didn't take my Gemara with me, so I Xerox sheets. I put my notes on here. Yeah, perfect. So Hadram Abai. So remember again, so the Gemara was trying to figure out this interesting discussion over here when it comes to Kiddushas Bechar. So Abaye advanced his interpretation of the case, and then the Gemara says over here, Hadram Abaye. So again, remember, Abaye had said that maybe the case was that the person only had a flock of 9, and ultimately, again, this particular Suffolk animal was the 10th animal. Hadr Amra Abaye then subsequently said, Lav Milsihi, forget about what I just said. I will say, here's what's incredible, by the way, about a Gemara like this, which is the Gemara could have totally bypassed this entire thing. Right, totally bypass this entire thing and totally just given us, leave out Abaye's first answer, especially given the fact, remember, let's say the codifiers of the Gemara know what's coming, so it's not like the pshat that it's unfolded in real time over here. So they could have easily eliminated the first answer of Abaye and just give us the final answer. I will say, but sometimes the Gemara teaches us incredible lessons, not just from the final conclusion, but in the process as well. The ability to espouse an opinion and then to say, I was wrong, is as great as advancing a halachically sound and correct opinion as well. I would say, we know this from our own lives. How many times does it happen that I say something, I have an opinion, I have a sheet, I have this, and then I find out I'm wrong. I would say, it is so much easier to spend a lifetime entrenched in a wrong opinion than it is to go ahead and find the courage to say I was wrong and walk it back. We've quoted many times in the Gemara Masechah Shabbos, Lamad Lashon Chalomer Eini Yodea. You have to teach your tongue to say I don't know, meaning it's unnatural for a person to say I don't know. There's even something more unnatural than saying I don't know, and that's saying I was wrong. I would say such an incredible Musar Haskell, but think about this for just a moment. How much happier would we be in life if we learned to say I was wrong? Let's say we spend so much time and so much effort, rallying behind and trying to go ahead and solidify positions in life that we know are incorrect. Just because I don't want to be wrong. There's a beautiful Sfas Emes. I've said this before, then we have to go on. This Sfas Emes says, that, I think I mentioned this actually not so long ago, that what's the fundamental difference between adults and children? The Sfas Emes says that children value being happy over being right, and adults value being right over being happy. It's such a tremendous yisod. And that's why kids, right? Children get into a fight with each other. What happens? 2 seconds later, everybody's best friends, right? Why? Because again, in a child's simplistic mind, just being happy is the most important thing. Who cares about being right? adults are so fixated on being right that we'd rather be right at all costs, at the cost of true MS, at the cost of true happiness. So the Gemara Dafka tells us Abaye's first opinion. And then, by the way, we both say the three most profound words in today's daf: Hadar Amar Abaye Lav Milsa. Lav Milsihi. Both say underline that line 15 times, highlight it, bold it, make it into a bumper sticker. And I'll say that is life. That is the key to success in life. Hadar Amar Abaye. I thought about it a little bit more. That which I said, Lav Milsihi. Forget about it. I was wrong. Simar says why? Simar says Da'amri Sveika La Barisuri. Because mostly when it comes to Meiser Behema, you can't have any sveikas. This nan. Kafas echa min aminuyin l'sochan kulam pturim. So it's actually an interesting case. Let's say you tithe the flock. So remember again, how do you tithe animals? You keep them in the pen. You have the very small opening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then number 10 comes along. What do you do with number 10? A little paintbrush, right? Little paintbrush, Meiser Behema. Now both say, now that means that all of the other 9 are tithed animals, right? So they're tithed. So they're good to go. They're good to go. They do not need anything else. So the Gemara says as follows: what happens if one of those jumped back into the pen? So it says you have an animal that was already tithed that jumped back into the pen. So all of the other animals are patur as well. So the Gemara says, if you hold that a suffix animal does still require, is still tithable, so then ultimately again we should go ahead and tithe the miman of shach. Because ultimately, if the animal that you choose is subject to meiser behema, then fantastic. Niftar b'minyan haroi. And if it's not a bar chiyuva, then it's been exempted with a proper counting. The Amar Rava, because Rava has said minyan haroi. But say so minyan haroi means if an animal was part of a proper counting. Rashi, look at last Rashi. Minyan haroi poter hayelo yutlaim umana chamesh. Umeis echa min she'ein minuyin hamenuyin peturin v'she'ein minuyin mitzarfin legorin achar shiltav. Suppose this is actually a fascinating case. Imagine for a moment you have a flock of 10. You have a flock of 10. I will say what happens. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let's say again number 6 dies. Number 6 dies. So we'll say, see, here's what's interesting. Obviously, you can't continue to tithe 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? Why not? Why not? You don't have a minion, right? In other words, you're lacking the requisite number. What about the first 5? Are they tithed? Are they tithed? Because they were counted. Right? Remember, again, just our same imagery. You have the pen, you have 10 animals. They're coming out. 1, 2, 3. So 1 through 5 come out. Number 6 dies in the pen. So now I know the process is halted. 7, 8, 9 have to become part of a new chevra. Right, that's for sure. What about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So we'll say, so the halach is, Rava says, it's actually really interesting. Dama Rava, minyan haroi poter. If you were part of a proper counting, you're good. So here's what's fascinating, right? We'll say this actually could be good, like, you could bring this up, sometimes people are looking for small talk to make, So again, you ever hear of a case of where you could even pater animals from Meiser Behema without a full 10? The person will be like, no, tell me, right? And you'll say, oh, funny you should ask. Gemara, right? Bava Metzia daf vav amud beis. So because 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were part of a proper minyan, therefore halacha l'maisa they're exempt. That's what it means when it says minyan haroi poter. If you are part of a proper Meiser Behema cohort, then ultimately again you are exempted. You are exempted going forward. Ella, both say Zainam Dalef. Ella, ma'is l'chalamimar. So both say, so what is it you could say in this case? So asiri vada amrachmana velo asiri safek. So both say it must be again in this case of where an animal that was already part of a tithed group jumped back into another chevra. The reason why ultimately again it's going to pater everything is because the Torah on Sisa Meiser Behema only says you have to tithe asiri vadai, a definitive 10th animal. However, the Gemara says v'lo asiri safek, but not a potential asiri. Look at Rashi, asiri vadai. Hitzrich hakasav la'aser, v'lo hitzrich la'aser es safek. V'chol asiri shebekan safekin shafilu yatsa apat b'chemish. Fine. So what the idea over here is the obligation of Meiser Behema only applies when you have a definitive group that is subject to tithing. But if there is a safek, then ultimately again there is no obligation. Amarle Ravacha Medifti Ravina, my Svekas. So Ravina said, so Ravacha Medifti said to Ravina, what are the Svekas? Now I was saying, I remember, we said before, he's quoting over here the Gemara that said before, Hasvekos Nichnasin Ledir Lehes Aser, that Suffolk animals enter into the pen to be tithed. So Ravacha Medifti is saying to Ravina, which Svekas are you talking about over there? What's Vegas? Ilim is Safik Bechoros. If you tell me it's talking about Safik Bechor animals, like I will say, that's how we started this whole sugya. If it's not Safik Bechor animals, Yihiyah Kodesh Amrachmana Velo Shekvar Kadosh. That can't be it, because I will say the Torah over here is referring to Yihiyah Kodesh. Yihiyah Kodesh means animals. Remember again, I made this distinction in yesterday's daf between innate Kedusha and conferred Kedusha. So the pasuk over here that the Gemara is referencing is Yihiyah Kodesh is conferred Kedusha. Conferred Kedusha. So it can't be talking about Safek Bechar, because Bechar is innate Kedusha. Ella Safek Pidyon Peter Chamar. So this is actually interesting. We must be talking about a situation of a sheep that was separated. So you had a Safek Peter Chamar. So remember again, I will say donkey is the one non-kosher animal that is subject to Kedushas Bechar. So we must be talking about a case over here is you had a firstborn donkey, a Safek firstborn donkey. In other words, I'm not sure if it's a firstborn or not. So I redeemed it with a sheep. Safek Pidyon Peter Chamar. Rashi says over here, it's in the second short line in Rashi, Tala shehifrish shehufrash as safek peter chamar shafiluhu peter chamar vaday ein batala zeh shalpiyam mishum kedusha. Fine. So the Gemara says, Rav Nachman, Amar Ravua, Yisra shahayilo asara safek pitre chamar besoch beiso. So we'll listen to this case, and the Gemara is reflecting the view of Rav Nachman. What did Rav Nachman say? Let's say a Jew has 10 safek firstborn donkeys. So I have 10 donkeys, and all of them are Safek Bechar donkeys. So what's the halacha? Mafrish alein asara sein umasran vehin shalom. So what do you do with them? You go out and you separate 10 sheep. I would say, but remember, you get to keep the sheep. Now I will say, now Rashi says over here, Lafkui isurayu l'mishrei ba'avoda. So I'll say, so now remember again, you get to keep those sheep. Why do you get to keep those sheep? This is the whole amotzi mechavero alav haraya thing. So that's what you do. So the Gemara therefore says, that's the case. So just to kind of bring full circle. So the Gemara said that if you have svekos, right? If you have Suffolk animals, they are still tithable. What's the case of Suffolk animals that are still tithable? That's the case of where you have 10 Suffolk firstborn donkeys. What do you do with 10 Suffolk firstborn donkeys? You separate 10 sheep to redeem those donkeys. Now, who gets to keep those sheep? Me, the Yisrael. Why? If it's redeemed, so ultimately, again, doesn't it go to the Kohen? And the answer is, remember, it's Amotzi Mechaver Lavaraya, right? So remember again, but because they're mine, therefore what? They're subject to tithing. And that's why the halach is you put them in the pen and ultimately you tithe them. Fine. So now the Gemara says, by the way, my Haviyallah de Masusa. We'll say, do you remember how we got here? You're like, absolutely not, right? So let me remind you how you got here. We got here, I will say that, remember, we were talking about the case of, we started with the case of where one party, right, Reuven and Shimon walk into Beis Din and they're holding the cloak. And then remember again what happened? Reuven grabbed it from Shimon. So now we'll say we had a machlokas in the Gemara. Does Beis Din extract the cloak from Reuven and give it back to Shimon, so to speak? In other words, do we essentially restore Shimon's chilek that he was holding on to when they walk into Beis Din, or not? So I will say. So then the follow-up shaila was, if you say that we do not restore Shimon's portion to him, Reuven grabbed it out of Shimon's hand. Okay, it's Reuven. That's it. Case is over. If we don't restore it, does Shimon have the ability to be makdish what was his part of the cloak? Remember that? That's what we're talking about. Right? So we'll say, so then essentially the shaila kind of morphed into, can you be makdish something that you don't have in your physical possession? The Gemara then led to a case of a bathhouse. Remember again, there were two guys fighting over a bathhouse. One called Reuven and Shimon. Shimon got so fed up that what did Shimon do? Shimon was makdish the bathhouse. And what did the Gemara say? There were Rabbanim who didn't use the bathhouse. So the Gemara wanted to use that as a proof that you see you could be makdish something that is even if it's not in your physical possession. So the Gemara says, by the way, my havi al masusa, what is the bottom line in that case? Like, what was the resolution in that case? So the Gemara says, Tashma dar michei Rav and hava uvda be'Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda be'Rav Huna upashta meha. So we'll say one time this situation came up, or similar type of situation came up, and they resolved it based on the following idea. The Amr Rav Nachman, Kolmamon she'in yachol tzia b'dayanin. We'll say in general, whenever you can't extract money through Beis Din, hekdisho eno kadosh, then your consecration is ineffective. Which I will say, essentially, is another way of saying is, if you have a monetary claim, but there is no way to enforce that claim through a court of law, then you don't have the power to be makdish that item. Which makes sense. Why? Because essentially, what does that mean? You don't have any ownership over it. In other words, if you have a claim against something, but you have no mechanism of retrieval, right? No mechanism of collection, then you don't have ownership. And if you don't have ownership, you can't go ahead and be makdish it. Okay. Now, what do you see from here? The Gemara says, but yet again we can infer from this that if you could extract the money through a judicial process, then hikdisho kadosh. Then if you were to go ahead and consecrate it, then it would be consecrated afal gav de lo afke, even though what? You didn't extract it. In other words, we're both saying, what the Gemara seems to be saying over here is, the ability to consecrate something is based on what? The potential to go ahead and extract this through a judicial process. Potential. But you need not have actually secured the item in order to go to make it hektish. What do you see from here? That you can make something hektish even though it's not in your physical possession. Incredible. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, is that true? We'll say, remember again, we had this case, remember Baba Kama. We'll say, if ultimately Reuven steals an object from Shimon, but Shimon didn't have Yehosh, Shimon didn't give up retrieving the object, neither has the ability to consecrate the item. So ultimately Shimon can't do it. Why? Because he's a thief. It's not his. And Reuven can't do it, even though Reuven is the titular owner, but again, the object is not in his possession. Someone say, what do you see from there? You see from there that you can't be makdish an object that is not in your possession. You can't makdish. Now, again, I just want to be clear, just to clarify this before we get to the punchline. Let's say, so the Gemara's question, obviously, if I own an object, and I want to be makdish it, of course I'm makdish it even if I'm not physically holding it, right? You understand? That's not the Gemara Shaila over here. The Gemara Shaila over here is when there is contested ownership, and one party has physical possession and one party doesn't have physical possession. Does the party that is claiming ownership but doesn't have physical possession have some ability to be makdish it? That's the Shaila. So both say, so the Gemara seems to indicate the answer to that is no. The answer to that is no. That halacha l'maisa, you can't be makdish something if you don't have physical ownership. But 1 second. So let's come full circle. So we'll say if that is indeed the case, that when there is an object of contested ownership, if you don't have physical possession, then ultimately again you do not have the ability to makdish it. So then let's go full circle to the bathhouse. So we'll say, so in the bathhouse, it was contested ownership. Shimon didn't have physical possession of it. So ultimately again, how was he makdish it? How is he makdish it? Because remember again, both sides, it seems to see that his hektish worked. Why does it seem that his hektish worked? Why? The rabbis didn't use it, right? The rabbanim didn't. They went to a different path. To which the Gemara says, no. So I'll say this is interesting. I don't know. For some reason, the Gemara's havamina, even though I didn't think this way. The Gemara says, you think we're just dealing like with a tub, right? In other words, the Gemara says, you thought the machlokes was like with a bathtub. Mamish, like with a tub. With the tub, that's not the machlokes. I'm supposed to say that's metaltalin. So rather, the Gemara says, no. We're dealing with a bathhouse. We're dealing with a structure. Karka. So I will say, see, here's the difference. I'll say, karka. Remember, karka in general Karkas ain't an exelis, right? Karka can't be stolen. So therefore, I will say, therefore, any case of karka where there is the process to secure it through a judicial process is as if it's in the domain, ultimately, again, of the person claiming ownership. So interesting, in other words, disputed karka, because it's extant and because karka itself can't be stolen, it's almost as if each of the litigants does have some level of possession over it. It's very, very interesting insight. Very interesting insight, and therefore, again, I will say, because it's in their rishus, therefore, halacha l'maisa, one party could be makdish it. So I will say, so it's interesting. So it sounds like over here, what the Gemara is saying is that in this case of karka, that Shimon, who is claiming ownership over it, ultimately has the ability to somehow confer some level of kedusha. Now, I will say, now whether or not this is actual kedusha or whether or not the rabbanim we're just being machmir, again, we'll have to see. I will say, obviously, we have a lot of halacha l'maisa to catch up on all of these cases, but what the Gemara is suggesting is that disputed karka is considered to be in the reshus of both of the litigants, and therefore halacha l'maisa, technically speaking, either party can make it hektish. Okay, fascinating. So the Gemara goes weiter. We'll say back to our Mishnah. Some of the interesting cases over here. This is great. We'll say two people are holding a cloak. Same case, just different lashon. Two people are holding a cloak. Watch this. Ad makom shado magas. V'zeh notel ad makom shado magas. V'ashar cholkin b'shaveh. Interesting. Shabbos say this price has a little bit of a different twist. Reuven and Shimon walk into Beis Din, both holding on to a cloak. So what does the price say? Reuven gets up to the part of the cloak that he's holding on to. Shimon gets the part of the cloak that he's holding on to, and the rest of the cloak is divided evenly. So Rabbi say, right, this is different than so we're going to say this is different than our Mishnah in two ways, right? Just off the bat, number one, I will say is you could have a case where Reuven and Shimon walk in both holding the same cloak, but they're not holding the same amount, right? Reuven could be holding, 1/3, Shimon could be holding, 2/3, and according to this brisa, you divide it up based on how they're holding it, and if there are any parts that are not quote unquote being held, those are the parts you divide up equally. So the Gemara says, Machmili Rabbi Avo motioned, and he said, 1 second, ubishvua. Now 1 second, don't get excited over here. You don't just split it, but rather again you require a shvua. Obviously, both parties are going to have to swear, like we have in our Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "Ela masnisin diktani depalgi bahadadi velo katani zenoto ad makom shado magas heichi mishkachas." So we'll say, someone wants to suggest, obviously, this case must be different than our Mishnah, right? Because we'll say our Mishnah didn't mention anything about you get to the point where your hand is holding. See, I will say the way the Bryce's case really seems to be a case, and where mamish like they're really like holding on to it. So the Bryce says, Reuven walks in holding 2/3, Shimon walks in holding 1/3, Reuven gets 2/3, Shimon gets 1/3. Okay, they both have to swear, but Lamaisa, whatever unheld parts, those are the parts that are divided equally. But our Mishnah therefore must be talking about a different case. So what's the case of our Mishnah? To which the Gemara says, Amra Papa, titafisi bikarkashta. So we'll say Rashi says, bikarkashta, bigradin, shebish. So it's essentially our Mishnah must be talking about a case where Reuven and Shimon, which I think I will say is the way that at least the way I envision this case, they're holding the edges. They're both holding the edges. They literally walk into Beis Din with a tug of war on the edges of the talis. Okay, so in that case, that's where the Mishnah says neither is really holding on to more than the other. Reuven's holding on to one side of the talis, Shimon's holding on to one side of the talis. So what's the halacha? Yachloku. We split it obviously with the Shavua. Okay, Amar Misharshia. So Misharshia says, you see from here a very important halacha. So we'll say, but this brisa is introducing to us a new case over here. Over here, you have Reuven and Shimon holding on to some much more significant part of the cloak, and whatever you're able to grab, that's yours. That's yours. Amrav Misharsha. So Shemamina, what do you learn from this? Hai Sudra Kevan de Tafis Be Shalosh Al Shalosh Karinan Be Venasan Rehu Tikiman de Pasek Tami Vekani. Misharsha said something interesting. Misharsha is talking over here about a Kenyan Sudr. So remember again, a Kenyan Sudr, that's where you use, let's say, again, it could be, it's a kli. You use an object to go in and transfer ownership over something. Now there's a machlokes exactly how Kenyan Sudr works over here. Rashi understands the way it works is like this. Imagine for a second, Reuven wants to go ahead and sell a sheep to Shimon. sell the sheep to Shimon. So what happens? So ultimately, again, so Shimon is going to go ahead and give Reuven an object. Reuven is going to lift up the object, and by lifting up the object, he transfers over ownership of the sheep to Shimon. Right? Kinyan Sudar. We do this at a chasana. We do it by Mechiras Chametz. Right? Kinyan Sudar. The reason I'm saying it's a machlokes is because Rabbi say it's a machlokes as to whose kli is supposed to be used. Is it the kli kona or is it the kli makna? Okay. In any event, we'll just go with Rashi over here that it is the person ultimately acquiring the object. So Shimon gives the utensil ultimately again to Reuven. Reuven, so to speak, lifts up the object of Shimon, and Shimon acquires the object. Shimon acquires the sheep. The Gemara says over here that halacha l'maisa. Let's say Shimon, the buyer, is giving over Reuven, let's say a garment, a cloak. Once Reuven goes ahead and holds on to a 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths area of the cloak, that's it. The kinyan is done. He need not lift up or take possession of the entire part of the cloak. Once he lifts up a significant piece, it's as if almost we look at that significant piece as detached. I will say, what does this have to do with our Gemara? Because what do we just learn in the Brisa? What you're holding on to is what? Is yours. That's the way it works in halacha. Whatever you're holding on to, that ultimately again becomes yours. So Reuven and Shimon walk in. Reuven walks in holding 2/3. Shimon walks in holding 1/3. What Reuven's holding on to is his. What Shimon's holding on to is his. In the case of Kinyan Sudar, so again the Reuven, once he takes a 3 by 3 piece of the cloak, it's as if again he's taking that piece of the cloak, and the Kinyan is done. The Kinyan is done. So I will say, by the way, a tremendous Musar Haskell on this also. You know, in life, the only thing that's yours is the stuff you hold on to. Meaning what? I will say, a lot of times in life we have such beautiful goals and dreams and aspirations. And goals, dreams, and aspirations are fantastic. They're absolutely beautiful. That's the fuel. That's the fuel for accomplishment. But Lamaisa, the only thing that's yours are the things you hold on to. The only thing that are yours are your maisim, are your actions, dreams, aspirations, wants, machshavas, all beautiful. But lamaisa, those are parech ba'avir. They're like floating in the air. Only the actions you do, the things you produce, those are the things that you hold on to, and it's only the things that you hold on to that are truly yours. Such an incredible yisod. The Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, umayshna midrat chista. Why is it different in the case of chista? What of chista? It's great. Get biyado u'meshicha. Remember from our Gittin days, right? Reuven's giving a get to his wife Rachel. He gives her a document, but he has a string. Literally, there are strings attached. Literally, right? So he's going ahead and he has a string attached to the get. So if he has the ability to go ahead and literally yank it back, then she's not divorced. But if he can't yank it back, she is divorced. But I will say, the Gemara's and unasked questions, but I don't understand. You just told me that once you hold on to something, it's yours. Who cares if he can pull it back or not? So once she holds that get in her hands, so finished, done. To which the Gemara says, Hasam krisus ba'inan veleka. But I say, don't bring in get. Get is something totally different. Get has to be a krisus. The difference with get is that a get has to be a document that fundamentally, totally, completely, and wholly divides and dissolves the marital union. If he could yank back that document, that means that there is still a connection. Hacha nasina ba'inan baha'ika. In our cases, I'll say all is quote unquote the conveyance is giving over, and that's accomplishment. All right, I will say really fascinating. Amar Rava, I will say first wide line, great case here. If it was a golden talus, we split it between Reuben and Shimon. So where it says, okay, pshita, fine. Who cares what the cloak is made of? The halakha is going to be the same. No, say what's the case? The case, if you can imagine, is it was a cloak that had, let's say, some gold thread running through the middle. So the Gemara is teaching us we split that middle gold thread. To which the Gemara says, Hanami pshita. Okay, we got it. Cholkin. To which the Gemara says this: Lotzricha, the mikra of legabe dechad. Shabbos said this is interesting. The Gemara says, no. What's the case? The case is where the gold part. Shabbos say, imagine the following case. Remember, now we have 2 models. Model number 1 is, I'm going to go out of order. Model number 1 is the Brisa, where Reuven walks in holding 2/3 and Shimon walks in holding 1/3. Okay, everybody gets what they're holding. Model 2, which is our Mishnah, is Reuven's holding onto one edge of the garment and Shimon's holding onto the other edge of the garment. What's the halakha over there? there. Yachloku split it. So we'll say, imagine for a moment. So again, when we split it, obviously we're talking like down the middle, 50%. Imagine, we'll say, if there is a column of gold thread, but it happens to be that the column of gold thread is not midpoint on the garment; it's more towards Ruvain. So now Reuven's like, absolutely, split that bad boy down the middle, right? Absolutely, right? Go ahead, split it, right? Split it, right? Yes, I'm all for pshara. I'm a man of shalom, right? Split it, right? So let's say, so again, you might have thought, well, look, that's how you split it, and he gets the gold part. To which the Gemara says, "Ma'odetema damarle plog hachi, kamash malan damarle my chaz is the palgasachi plug hachi." So this is very important halacha that when we split the cloak 50-50, essentially, if there is a more valuable part of that cloak, we divide the entirety of the cloak 50-50. So even though technically speaking, the gold column, maybe in the, we'll call it the 50% of Ruvain, nevertheless, that is not how we split the cloak. It's not how we split the cloak. All right, it's an interesting halacha. So let's go later. Shnaim adukin b'shtar malva. Supposed to listen to this. Great case over here. Two people, Reuven and Shimon, are holding on to a loan document. So just to be clear, the loan document says that Reuven lent Shimon $1,000. So Shnaim adukin b'shtar malva. So I'm sorry, Shnaim adukin b'shtar malva omer sheli Reuven nafal mimeni. Right? Umatzasiv. So Reuven the lender. Now both say. Now remember again, just how does the loan work? Reuven lends $1,000 to Shimon. Reuven has a document. That document is the vehicle of connection. The vehicle of connection. So now what happens afterwards? That's the vehicle of connection. So now afterwards, after Shimon pays back the document is given to Shimon, and Shimon is able to keep it as a form of receipt. Right? That way, again, you don't want the lender being able to collect multiple times. So now watch this case. So now Reuven and Shimon walk into Beis Din, both clutching the loan document. Okay? So watch this. So Reuven says, I lost it and I found it. Baruch Hashem, I lost it, I never collected the loan, I lost it and then I found the document. Right? Shimon, the borrower, says no. So now here's what's interesting. The borrower, Shimon, is not disputing the loan. He's like, yeah, I borrowed money from you, but I paid you back. And the document was mine. In other words, I had the document as a form of receipt. So what do we do? So the Gemara will say, here we have a major machlokes, multi-machlokes. So we'll say, Rabbi says, we uphold the shtar. In other words, we establish the validity of the shtar through the signatures. Rashi says, so we'll say, sounds like what Rabbi is saying is, look, you know what, as long as we know that it is a valid shtar, then it sounds like what Rabbi is saying is, we let the lender collect with it. Okay? Rabbi Shmuel says, split it. Now, we'll say, of course, what split it means in this case is that what? Creditor is going to have to forgive part of the debt, and borrower is going to have to pay back 50%. Nafal yad dayin. What happens if I both say, what happened? Now, it sounds like over here again, we're going to explore each of these opinions. What happens if it was a judge who found the document, not one of the parties? Then what's the halacha? Lo yotziu olamis. He shouldn't give it back to either of the parties. Okay, Rabbi Yossi says, Harehu b'chazkaso. Rabbi Yossi says the document retains its initial chazaka. All right, we'll have to see exactly what all of these mean. So remember again, Rebbe said that we should go ahead and validate the shtar with its signatures. So is that saying that halacha l'maisa, we validate the shtar, and now again we give it back to the lender, and the lender could go ahead and collect everything? What about Leslie Masnis and Shnaim Ochzin? I don't understand. We both say isn't this a case of Shnaim Ochzin, right? Reuven and Shimon, lender and borrower walk into Beis Din, both clutching the loan document. Borrower says, lender says, Kula Shali, I'm owed the money, right? Borrower says, Kula Shali, I paid back the money, and you both say, isn't this the Mishnah Yachloku? Yet, Rebbe seems to be saying, no, let's establish the validity of the shtar, give it back to the creditor, and he could collect with it. What's going on? No. Both say ultimately again, when the shtar has been certified, and Rashi says, or both say, if you look at Rashi, b'mekuyam shekazabo henpik sheyatzekvar bebezin veidu edim al chasimos yadan v'kolsena deganan bo shtara dinan nafik kadmana v'asidu ploni. So we'll say, when the document has been certified. Remember, also we had this before. Certification of documents. We saw some, I believe in ksuvas. Certification of documents. So let's say, so remember again, Beis Din would write their certification, their handpick on the document itself. So the Gemara says over here, so Rav Sidim Rav Nachman, when the document is certified, everyone agrees, split it. Ki pligi, where do we have machlokes? B'shein mekuyam, when the document is not certified. Rabbi says, Moda b'shtar shekas v'tzarach l'kaimo. Rebbe holds that even ultimately, again, when all the parties agree that the loan took place, still there has to be a kiyum, right? The document has to be certified. V'mekuyum le polig. So if the document is certified, we'll split it. Yachloku k'shtay mochsin. V'lo mekuyum le. But if the document is not certified, lo polig. We're not going to split anything. Why? My taima chaspa ba'almahu. Wow. So we'll say, Rebbe essentially says that a loan document like this, we'll say in this kind of case, where again, creditor and borrower are fighting over it, Rebbe says like this: if halacha l'maisa, the document is certified, yachloku. If the document is not certified, garbage. It's a piece of clay. So the Gemara says, Man kamashli, so the Gemara says, my timer, chasab amhu. The Gemara says, man kamashli lahaishtara, lova hakamra priya. Because we'll say, ultimately, again, who is ascertaining the validity of this document? The borrower is saying that I borrowed it, but the borrower is also saying that halacha l'maisa, I paid it. So without a certification, ultimately, again, this document is meaningless. Rav Shmuel Silber says, no. If all the parties agree that the loan took place, certification is unnecessary. Shmuel says, therefore, because both of the parties are agreeing that the transaction took place, we don't need certification. Because we don't need certification, when both of them walk into Beis and holding on to this document, what do? Split it. Yachloku. Shmuel say this is just the case of Shnayim Ochsim B'Talis. They will say, what about the statement that said that if the document was found by a dayan, we don't go ahead and give it to anyone? Shmuel says, Zayin and Beis. Ma'ishna liyad dayin. So we'll say, what does it mean? It's coming into the hand of a dayin. What does that mean? So the Gemara says, in other words, we'll say, what the Gemara is bothered by is, what does it matter if it fell into the... See, I understand the logic. We'll say, what's the logic? If someone else finds this document, you can't give it to Reuven or to Shimon, right? Why not? Because you may be allowing for erroneous collection or negation of the debt. But why does the Brisa frame it as if the dayan finds it? It's if any person finds it. So the Gemara says, Amarava Hakikam, what it means to say, V'acher shematza shtar liyad dayan. So I will say, so what's the case? So it's interesting. So if ultimately, again, if someone found this document after it had fallen into the hands of a dayan. I will say, what does it mean it fall into the hands of a dayan? It was certified. Rashi says over here, Shematza shtar shenafal kvar liyad dayan umaynihu hach nefila dichsiv behenpik. So we'll say, so this is what it means to say. Everyone says like this: if someone, a regular person, found a certified document, then I will say, what's the halacha? He shouldn't give it back to either of the parties. So it's not that the dayan is finding it, but in other words, a regular guy is finding a document that, so to speak, fell into the hands of a dayan. Meaning, I'm walking down the street, I find a certified loan document that says Reuven lent $1,000 to Shimon. So what's the halacha? The Gemara says, Lo yotzi olamis. Don't go ahead and give it back to either party. So the Gemara says, Lo yotzi olamis. Rabbi say, now what's the logic? Because remember again, if you give it back to the borrower, you may be empowering him to collect a second time. And if you give it back to the borrower, you may be allowing him to totally skip out on repayment. So the Gemara says, V'lo mi bai lo kasa behenpik. And we'll say, it goes without saying that obviously if you find a loan document that is not certified, of course you don't give it back to either party. Why? If you find an uncertified document, certified loan document, you certainly don't give it back to either party. Why? We'll say why. It's fascinating. Why? Because we'll say maybe it was never used. Sometimes people write up shtaros in anticipation of a transaction that's going to occur, and maybe even they sign it, but the transaction never actually occurs. So if it's uncertified, you certainly don't give it back to either party. The chiddush is, we'll say, we'll say the chiddush over here is, if somebody finds a certified loan document, you still don't give it back to either party, because again, we'll say we really don't know what's happened over here. We're concerned that maybe, we'll say, remember what we're concerned about over here is that maybe the borrower really paid back the loan already, and if you give it back to the creditor, he's going to be able to go ahead and double dip. Rabbi Yossi says, "Harei hu b'cheskaso v'lo chashina lepiron." Rabbi Yossi says, if you have a loan document, especially like a certified loan document, we're not choshesh that the loan was paid up, and again, the shtar retains its chazaka as an unpaid loan. So the Gemara says, really? V'lo chayish Rabbi Yossi lepiron? So Rabbi Yossi is never choshesh that maybe a document, that maybe your loan has been paid off. Tanya, listen to this. Matzah shtar ksuva b'shuk. So I'll say, interesting case here. Let's say, right, Reuven's married to Rachel, and I'm walking in the shuk, and I find Rachel's ksuva in the shuk. I find it in the shuk. So I'll say, what's halacha? Bizman shabal modi yachzer isha. When the husband in Metzia, that's my wife's ksuva, and or ksuva, so give it back to Rachel. Ena bal modi lo yachzer lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. But if the bal is not mod, if the bal doesn't admit, and we're going to define the parameters in this in just a moment. Right? So we'll say, so in other words, if the husband doesn't admit, now husband doesn't admit, Rashi says here is he claims I paid the ksuva and I lost the document. That document ultimately again was my receipt. Then we don't give it back to either party. Rabbi Yossi says no. Oda tachas baila yachzir isha. So we'll say if Reuven and Rachel are a married couple, then you give the ksuva back to Rachel. Right? What's the shaila? What's the shaila? What is the shayla? So the Gemara says, "Nis'armula o nisgarsha lo yachzir lo lazeh v'lo lazeh." I'll say, but again, if Rachel was widowed or divorced, then you can't give it back to either party. Why not? So we'll say, what are we concerned about? We're concerned that maybe Reuven already paid the ksuva, or his estate already paid the ksuva, and if you give it back to Rachel, she's going to go ahead and try to collect again. So we'll say, what do you see from here? Rabbi Yossi is contradicting himself. So in the loan document case, Rabbi Yossi says, if you find a loan document, a certified loan document, let's assume it's certified, then halacha l'maisa, the shtar has its chazaka. We assume that Shimon has not paid back his debt, and therefore give the document back to Reuven. Yet over here by the ksuva case, if halacha l'maisa Rachel was widowed or divorced, we don't give the ksuva back to Rachel because we're concerned that maybe halacha l'maisa she was already paid and she's going to use this ksuva to get a second payment. So you see from here that he is choshesh that people pay their debts. So what's going on? Eipoch. So we'll say, the Gemara says, you're right. Switch around the positions. Nafal liyad dayin lo yotzi olamis divrei Rabbi Yossi. Okay, so we'll say, so switch the shitas. Rabbi Yossi is choshesh for piron. He is choshesh to maybe the document that maybe the debt was paid, and therefore Rabbi Yossi is the one who said that if the document fell into the hands of a third party, because remember again we said nafal liyad dayin doesn't really mean liyad dayin. Nafal liyad dayin means it falls into the hands of another party after it's been certified by a dayin. We don't extract it. Don't give it to either party. That's Rabbi Yossi. The Chum say harei hu b'cheskaso, and the Chum are the ones who are saying that halacha l'maisa no. We look at this loan document as a regular loan document, the bona fide loan document, therefore give it back to the creditor. So we switch the positions, and therefore again, now Rabbi Yossi of the loan document is aligned with Rabbi Yossi of the ksuva. Mar says that's great. In solving one problem, you created another. Ihachi kashe d'Rabbanan d'Rabbanan. They will say now the positions of the Rabbanan contradict each other. To which the Gemara says no. Right? Let's stop. Shtar ksuva kul Rabbi Yossi. The truth is this brisa by the ksuva, all of it reflects the view of Rabbi Yossi. And we'll say there's a little piece missing, and here's how you have to read it. Ein habal moda. So we'll say, here we go, right? I'm walking in the shuk. What do I find? I find Rachel's ksuva. Rachel's married to Reuven. I find her ksuva. So now what's my shayla? What do I do with this document? So ein habal moda. If the husband isn't moda, right? If he's not, both say ein moda means he says, I paid the ksuva already. So lo yachzir lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. Then ultimately, again, you don't give it back to either party. So when is that so? Shenis amrla onis garsha. Rabbi say again, that's when what? Rachel's divorced or widowed. Right? Now what's the logic in that? The logic in that is that would have been an occurrence in which it's possible that Reuven's claim is true, or the estate's claim is true. Because again, upon death or divorce, there is a ksuva that comes due. So now, if I'm walking in the shuk and I find Rachel's ksuva, and now what happens? Reuven, let's say Reuven claims, I paid it, that's my ksuva, give it back to me, that's my receipt, because we divorced and I paid her the money. So what's the halacha? We don't give it back to either party, because we don't know what the story is over here. Aval, olda tachas baila, yachzir the isha. Rabbi say, but if halacha l'maisa, they're still married, right? Reuven and Rachel are married, then of course you give the ksuva back to Rachel. Why? Rabbi Yossi Omer Oda Tachas Baila Yachzir Isha. Rabbi Yossi holds that when they are married, so Rabbi say there is no reason not to give the ksuva back to the woman. Nis'ar la onis garsha lo yachzir lo lazeh velo lazeh. But again, if she's divorced or widowed, then Rabbi said then there is the possibility that maybe the ksuva was repaid, but maybe it wasn't. So therefore you can't give the document back to either of the parties. Okay? Rav Papa says no. The olam lo seifuch. Rav Papa says do not switch around the sheet of ksuva in order to align them with the loan document. Why? We'll say, watch this. Rabbi Yossi is actually addressing himself to the position of the Rabbanon. How so? Lididi, according to Rabbi Yossi, is like this. Lididi, according to me, afilunis armala onis garshan namilo chashin lepiron. So Rabbi Yossi is like this. As far as I'm concerned, generally Rabbi Yossi will say is not choshesh that people paid up their debts. It's actually interesting. Rabbi Yossi operates with the assumption people don't pay their debts. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, you find the loan document, right? The chazaka is borrower did not pay it, because we'll say also there's something deeper involved in this. If you paid your debt, you are going to guard that document with your life, or you're going to destroy it. Right? There's no need, right? There's no need, I remember the good old days when I owed people money, right? Or there's no keepsake over there, right? So Rabbi Yossi will say the chazaka is, if there's an extant shtar, that must mean that the creditor is owed money. Same thing with the ksuva, right? If there's an extant, if husband got that ksuva, if he really paid it, and ultimately again, he got it, tear it up. Destroy it, or watch it like a hawk. So if you're finding it, the chazaka is that Allah l'maisa, that belongs to the woman. So that's the position of Rabbi Yossi through and through. So over here, Rabbi Yossi is addressing himself to the Rabbanon. He says like this: So Rabbi Yossi says like this: as far as I'm concerned, even if Rachel is divorced or widowed, I give the ksuva back to her, because we do not assume that the debt has been paid. Okay. However, listen to this. Oduli mias ba'oda tachas baila the yachzir leisha the lav bas pironi. Rabbi says Rabbanan at least agree with me in the case where Reuven and Rachel are still married, and you find Rachel's ksuva. At least agree with me in that case that you're going to give the ksuva back to Rachel. From the Rabbanan say absolutely not. The Rabbanan say Eimer Tzuri Atbasa. The Rabbanan say no. Even in a case where they're still married, we're not going to give her back the ksuva. Why? Because it's possible Rabbi say that he paid her. Now, how did he pay her? So Rabbi say, technically speaking, what a husband could do is he could go ahead and give her. Let's say the ksuva is worth $30,000. So as I say, he gives her $30,000. He gives her 2 briefcases, right, filled with cash. Here's your ksuva. You could do that. You really could do that. Actually, again, he essentially will say if he wanted to lift the lien against other property. So the Rabbanan will say, we're concerned that maybe even though, again, they're still married, maybe he gave her money. Ravina says, no. In reality, switch around the earlier case. Interesting. So maybe the logic of the Rabbanan over here is that we are concerned that maybe there are 2 ksuvas. In other words, for Rabbi Yossi, l'shtei ksuvas lo chayshinan. Rabbi Yossi will say that Allah chalamaysa, we're not choshesh for the possibility ultimately of 2 ksuvas. So we'll stop over here for today. We're not finished with this yet. There's still much more to do. I will say, but again, incredible daf. And again, tomorrow we'll link back these cases in Metzia Hashem into our Mishnah as well. Shkoyach. All right, Chavra on Zoom. Shkoyach, everyone. Have a great day.